Recruiting in the Age of Googlization, When the Shift Hits Your Plan. Ira S. Wolfe. Shift or die. It's that simple. To make matters worse, humans suck at exponential change. We think when one thing happens, it only has one effect. We assume we know all the dots and where they are. We don't. We assume connecting the dots will give us one answer. It doesn't. The reality is far more complicated. Each dot is a moving target. It interacts with other dots, and how they combine keeps changing too. Each combination produces different effects that can impact what we can do right now, fairly soon, in the near future, in the far future, and in the very distant future. Something that happens now can even impact the past by impacting our understanding of the past. This degree of complexity leads to a lot of mistakes that makes most of us uncomfortable. But it's not just complexity that makes life more challenging and uncertain these days. Change doesn't just knock once and leave. Its persistent rat-a-tat-tat disrupts our lives, not just frequently, but continuously. Like the old ticker tape and the modern-day rolling LED banner, text messages alert us to breaking news stories. From sports scores, to weather, to traffic reports, to terrorist attacks. Updates pop up on our mobile devices and TV screens all day long. Many of the messages get lost in the noise of our daily busyness. Others catch our eye and curiosity kicks in. We click to get more information. One day early this year, 2017, my smartphone literally and figuratively lit up like a Christmas tree. Message after message kept popping up. Each one affirmed much of what I first forecast in 1999, that exponential change was shedding jobs and exacerbating an acute and persistent shortage of skilled labor. The events of that day embodied the convergence of exponential change, accelerating technology, and the digitization of jobs. The first alert I received announced the impending doom of one-time retail powerhouse Sears. Its stock had reached an all-time low as they announced plans to sell off their iconic brands Kenmore and Die Hard. Then just a few minutes later, former technology giant IBM broadcast a headline that revealed its 19th consecutive quarter with declining revenue. Those announcements were followed with news about two more giant retail brands, Macy's and JCPenney, shuttering hundreds of stores and laying off thousands of employees. In the following days, the Limited, Payless, and Radio Shack released plans to lock their doors too. As predictable as the sun rising each morning, the sun seems to set on another retailer that announces a series of store closings, layoffs, or bankruptcy. Ironically, the amazing announcement that Amazon would acquire the iconic Whole Foods came just a few weeks later. The magnitude of this business transaction is almost inconsequential compared to the size of its influence on things to come. At first glance, it might seem Amazon is going into the grocery business. In reality, what Amazon gets is massive data on more of our shopping habits. Could it soon acquire a 3D printing company to manufacture its own products on demand and a drone company to deliver to your front door? Stay tuned. Many people believe that the rise and fall of business in the retail sector is due to a failing economy. Certainly, the economy is not as robust as we'd like. Others blame the closures on fickle consumer trends that have simply run their course. Ordinarily, you might get away with either argument, but not this time. The collapse of retail brick and mortar, and the jobs that go with it, is not just a sign of a crumbling economy, but a demonstration of how myopia blinds management to market disruptors and executive hubris suffocates innovation. It wasn't Uber or Airbnb's business models that rocked the transport and hospitality industries, but the iPhone and its apps that made it possible. That's the subtlety and nuance of exponential change. This wave of going out of business is a clear and present failure to respond forcefully and quick enough to a digital world. Success sows the seeds of its own undoing unless you keep rethinking how you succeed, is the advice offered by Fast Company co-founder Bill Taylor. Here's some evidence to back Taylor up. Since 2006, the value of Sears has dropped over 96%. JCPenney has lost 86%. Macy's, 55%. Meanwhile, Amazon increased 1,934%, and it's on track to be the first trillion-dollar retailer. Its market value at the end of 2016 was greater than Walmart, Target, Best Buy, Nordstrom, Kohl's, JCPenney, Sears, and Macy's combined. Online shopping offers the allure of a search that produces dozens of choices, one-click pay, and next day or sometimes even same-day delivery. Brick-and-mortar retailers simply can't compete with traffic and parking delays, spotty inventory, mediocre customer service, and long checkout lines. The convenience and experience of the online retail world has doomed brick-and-mortar retail. Automation didn't just doom one business or one industry either, but thousands of jobs too. According to a landmark study by Carl Frey and Michael Osborne, the retail salesperson's job has a 92% probability of being automated in the next decade. The shift just hit the world of retail's best laid plans and its best conceived strategies. It's as if management was comfortable pounding the keys on their manual typewriters when consumers were demanding texts and tweets. It was a shift that retail didn't see coming, and it wasn't prepared to span. The demise of brick-and-mortar retail isn't just an isolated case study of the volatility in the retail industry. It's just one example of change that is impacting every industry. Exponential change doesn't play favorites. Each and every industry is in its path. It indiscriminately destroys battle-tested business models too. It carries massive implications for jobs, which is what this book is really about. How work gets done, people find jobs, and employers recruit workers in today's and tomorrow's environment of exponential change. Let me go back to that day early this year when my phone was lighting up with news about Shift. The news wasn't all bad. Not all companies had opted to just lie down and wait for change to run over them. In its heyday, around 2000, the Goldman Sachs cash equities trading desk was packed with traders, 600 of them to be exact. Fast forward 17 years, and they have discovered that 4 traders can be replaced with 1 computer engineer. Complex trading algorithms, some with machine learning capabilities, have replaced nearly all of the equity traders at Goldman Sachs. This isn't a futurist prediction, it's a present-day reality. Today, there are just 2 equity traders left, replacing 598 of their brethren with 200 computer engineers, which is just a drop in the bucket compared to the 9,000 computer engineers on Goldman's staff. That's nearly 1/3 of all employees. Goldman already has set its sight on investment bankers. They have mapped the 146 specific steps taken by this group and plan to transfer these responsibilities to automation. Goldman Sachs is not alone. The world's largest money manager, BlackRock, dumped traditional stock pickers for quants, quantitative analysts who rely heavily on artificial intelligence and very sophisticated algorithms. The barrage of alerts just kept coming. The next text announced Bank of America's plans to launch people-less branches and a virtual assistant like Siri within the next year. Their strategy includes literally automating every single thing. FedEx followed with plans to launch an autonomous delivery fleet, thus demonstrating the convergence of autonomous vehicles, sensors, artificial intelligence, and robotics. These same technologies can and will revolutionize the multi-trillion-dollar logistics market, affecting everything from the way people send and receive parcels to the global movement of large fleets of vehicles. Executives and small business owners often tune out announcements like these because they get so focused on day-to-day business. The status quo acts like a powerful tranquilizer. They rely on competitors for news and industry associations to advise and protect them. That often leads to groupthink, which throttles back the urgency to innovate. Exponential change is so disruptive that even professional change agents can be caught flat-footed. The legendary American business magnate and investor Warren Buffett admitted at his 2017 Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting that he didn't anticipate how much Amazon would threaten the retail industry. If Buffett missed it, how do any of us ordinary people have a chance? That's the danger of exponential change. Daniel Burrus, founder and CEO of Burrus Research and one of the world's leading technology forecasters and innovation experts, believes people will never think big enough. That's certainly true when it comes to grasping the far-reaching effects of second and third level consequences. Disruptive technology doesn't just create ripples, it's a tsunami that generates tidal waves that reach far beyond what most people imagine or anticipate. Consider the retailer that relies on daily commuters shopping on their way to and from work. What happens to them when more workers telecommute or self-driving vehicles change traffic patterns? With more electric cars, what happens when customers don't need to stop for gas, snacks, or coffee as often? What happens to government coffers when fewer gas sales and empty parking garages generate less tax revenue? It's also more common, and maybe even more likely, to see disruption coming from outside an industry. More than a century ago, the horseless carriage, our beloved automobile, wasn't the innovation of the entrepreneurial CEO who happened to own a horsewhip company. The transportation industry was disrupted by an outsider. At the time, that type of outside-in revolutionary change was unusual. Today, it seems to be the norm. Big Blue, IBM, used to be one of the largest and most innovative computer companies in the world. Today, most young adults only know it as an information and analytics company, aka IBM Watson. The Kodak sign was everywhere. Today, young people ask, what's a Kodak? Most companies were rocked from the outside in. Here's another recent outside-in disruption. For over half a century, Honeywell dominated the U.S. thermostat sales market. With nearly 39% of U.S. thermostat sales in 2013, its closest competitor owned only 6% of the market. Then the Nest thermostat came along. It wasn't created from within the research labs at an industry leader like Honeywell or Carrier or Trane or Johnson Controls, but by two former Apple engineers. At first, Honeywell didn't respond to this new startup company. Its classic round thermostat was untouchable. So Honeywell thought. By early 2017, Nest was nipping at Honeywell's heels for top spot in smart thermostat sales. Nest is not the exception, but the rule these days. Amazon wasn't the next generation makeover that arose from within the retail industry. Airbnb wasn't started by the lodging industry. Uber and Lyft weren't new services launched from within the taxi or transportation industry. iTunes didn't come from the music industry, just as Netflix wasn't the brainchild of an innovative TV or movie industry team. The list goes on and on. It's not just executives and owners who need to look beyond what's in plain sight. Every worker from the cashier and bank teller to the attorney, accountant, physician must anticipate and aggressively respond to the shift. An HVAC technician is one of today's most in-demand jobs. He might think his job is safe from foreign competition and cheap labor in Mexico, that only workers that manufacture the equipment he installs are at risk for automation. He doesn't make the connection that 3D printing, robots, drones, and autonomous vehicles could derail his career too. Despite above average demand today, the HVAC technician carries a 65% probability of automation by 2030. The auto body repair shop owner dismisses how driver-assisted technologies are projected to cut auto accidents by 50 to 90%. The internal combustion engine's heyday is long gone. What happens when the bread and butter oil change or a 30,000-mile checkup is history? With fewer accidents and repairs, automobile-related businesses have less work, require fewer helpers, purchase fewer supplies, and ultimately make less money. The trickle-down effect of disruptive technologies is exponential. These technologies are the rocket fuel for the accelerating change that is making mincemeat out of tradition and convention. Time-tested business models are crumbling. Consumer markets are experiencing unprecedented flux, turmoil, and evolution. Here's the bottom line. In a world connected by the internet and globalization, everything we do is interdependent, and seemingly unrelated events have far-reaching consequences. Exponential change requires organizations to stop hiring more window cleaners while watching their buildings burn. Individuals need to recognize that more than 1/3 of all jobs that exist today may be eliminated soon, and an even greater number of jobs will be significantly automated. Embracing the scope and impact of exponential change is difficult, even for those of us who experience and explore it every day. While participating in a recent summit on technology, I heard a brilliant question that pretty much sums up what every executive and business owner must ask himself. What outsider like Uber, Airbnb, Apple, or Netflix might erupt out of nowhere to transform my business or industry? What technological disruptors, such as artificial intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, and sensors, might bankrupt my business in the next 2 years? Employees, too, should be asking, what technological disruptors might replace my job and the work I do within 5 to 10 years? What technology might digitize my work and eliminate my job? As long as change is linear, incremental, and occurs over decades, companies and people can resist and even weather technological disruption no worse for the wear. But with the intensity and velocity of change accelerating, businesses, institutions, and individuals are poorly prepared and ill-equipped to deal with massive transformative disruption, or what we like to call exponential change. This disruption has created an environment that the military calls VUCA, V-U-C-A. It stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. VUCA gives you the feeling that you are standing in the middle of a Category 5 hurricane that crosses the path of a F5 tornado while the ground collapses beneath you due to a 10.0 earthquake. A catch-all for VUCA might be, "It's crazy out there." It isn't uncommon to read about companies and leaders who are on the top of the world one day and hanging on for dear life the next. To add to the uncertainty, life on the other side of exponential change is always radically different than the one left behind. This uncertainty and volatility spurs some people to want to run for the hills. Others choose to just duck and hide. Like Dorothy in search of the Wizard of Oz, "We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto." There's no wizard behind the curtain to whisk VUCA away. To make change work, organizations and individuals must shift how they think, prepare, work, and even play. Now take a deep breath, slowly exhale, and let's begin the journey. To read more about recruiting in the age of Googlization when the shift hits your plan, go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or your independent bookstore. Or you can call 800-803-4303 to order a copy. Thanks very much for listening. This is Ira Wolfe, author of Recruiting in the Age of Googlization.